Up next, we have Sarah Fortnam. Sarah has been a GIS professional in the oil and gas industry for almost 10 years in the Appalachian Basin. She's been working for Chevron since 2012. She holds a master's degree in GIS from the Indiana University of Pennsylvania, volunteers as a master food preserver, and has a love of all things fuchsia. Let's welcome Sarah.
I will say, so this is a repeat presentation of what I presented this spring at PUG in Houston. So if anybody saw it, it's the same thing. I'll try to make it a little bit longer because I know it ran short. But if it is short, that's just more time for you guys to enjoy the happy hour. So, a little bit of background about me. So my past career was as an archaeologist. So it was really neat to see the previous presentation where they included cultural resources. But through my education and working as a professional, you learn about the importance of location and why location matters. And as a GIS practitioner, I try to incorporate that into everything that I give my customers. So I'll talk today about our value stream map. Does anybody know what a value stream map is? Well, I will show you. First off, to give a little bit of background, our business unit has what's called our performance improvement office. And it's a cross-functional group of professionals within the business. And they work together to look at ideas across the business that deal with cost and enablers. And if something can provide a cost, provide value, enable anything like that, they take a look at it and we act upon it as a business, as an effort to save money or increase efficiency. So they encourage ideas from everybody throughout the business, and you don't have to be in that group to propose an idea. And some of the ideas can be really creative, and it's actually really fun. So our performance idea was posed by leadership in, I believe, Land. And Land had gone through a similar exercise the previous year about their whole value chain as well. And the term GIS kept coming up. And so leaders in Land wanted to know, where else is GIS used within our factory? And so our opportunity was to visualize GIS use in AMBU to identify opportunities, simplify work, increase efficiency, and reduce design cycle time. Our deliverables were simple: list of opportunities, understanding the key data that needs to be in GIS, like basic data management, which is one of my favorite things about GIS. In scope was all phases of our factory, all types of data, spreadsheet, CAD, rasters, all the touch points in the workflows between the various products and functions, which helped identify areas where we could reduce cycle time or where there were bottlenecks in the process. And we ended up with a preliminary list of over 80 opportunities, which is pretty surprising even from my perspective. But we did know that we weren't going to change our platform. We already had a project in flight to stand up a portal for ArcGIS, and we used that later as our keystone enabler. So what is Lean Sigma? So I will say I'm not an expert in Lean Sigma tools or in the Lean Sigma process. I was assigned as the GIS SME from the GIS team to help our Lean Sigma advisors with this project. But it's a blend of both Six Sigma and Lean Sigma, and it's a structured application of both quality and statistical tools with the purpose of gaining process knowledge. And through that, we defined the problem, and we wanted to measure it. So we wanted to establish a baseline, which is where our value stream map tool comes into play. And so this is the area that we focused on. So the value stream is all the activities that create value, the identification of all the specific activities occurring along a value stream for a product or a service. So because of legal reasons, I couldn't show you our actual value stream, but that was our service. We wanted to know where people were using GIS, like I said, from beginning to end. So all the way up to reclamation. We were even able to identify areas that we kind of called a gray area that might have involved PGPA or legal, kind of outside of the actual traditional factory. So number one, we'll use an example, illustrate the relationships between all elements of the process, beginning to end. Number two, document the process of how inputs are transformed into outputs. How are ETLs loaded? Is there spatial analysis being conducted by an end user or another GIS team member? Where are the decisions recycled? So identify the process bottlenecks and hidden rework steps. And what workflows in GIS can produce a decision? So identify areas that generate data for performance measures. A lot of people we found were using GIS data and just didn't realize it. And so when we were able to show them that they were making decisions based on a spatial analysis workflow or a spreadsheet that someone exported for them, it really opened their eyes and they were able to have a better understanding of what we can provide for them. You can see it's not always what you think, right? I really wish I could have showed it to you guys, but you can imagine all sorts of little lines coming off of the polygons. It would make sense. So back in May of last year, so over a year ago, we finally reported our findings to the leadership team. And what they basically said was, hey, great job. Here you go. Take all of these 80 plus opportunities and they're yours. You own them, right? The DSM was over. We had spent a month and a half meeting with the business, having interviews. We had what I kind of relate to as like a charrette in like planning purposes with the community. And then we would deep dive into individual processes and add that to the value stream map where data was being used, specific roles within the business that were using the data and how that related to other roles. So we were able to detail that process. So what do we do with 80 plus opportunities? And the opportunities you could look at, some were use buffer analysis for this workflow, or you add map services to a different application. Stuff like pretty simple asks. So the IT GIS team now owned these VSM results. We got together and talked with our leadership and asked for their support in coming up with a plan moving forward to work with this information. It wasn't as if the GIS team went out, showing the business that we have all these great tools, we have these great ideas. We actually were able to prove to them that we sat in a room over 2 months, and these were ideas from the business, and they had value, and it would enable their workflows to be more efficient. So our IT leadership team approved the project and assigned us a program manager. So in July of last year, we started working on what we call our GIS program. So we had very similar goals and statements from the VSM because all of our results came out of the VSM. We wanted to define the opportunities and standardize work between areas, define roles and responsibilities, and set clear ownership for deliverables and processes. And that improvement opportunity is really key. It's a key foundation to our program. And you'll see again, we called out Portal. So we were going to use Portal as our foundation platform moving forward. And of course, our desired outcomes. We all agreed that redesigning the GIS environment would have specific value. And just discuss next steps for this project. Okay, and here's more of our detailed goals. I'm not big on reading slides, so sorry guys, I'll let you guys read those. I'll call out a couple key ones. So identify sponsors for areas of the program to engage. So these sponsors, more or less, key leadership in the different functions. So we're able to engage with them, bring their OC up on GIS. Identify behaviors. So at this point, probably similar to other companies, we're pretty low on resources in the GIS team, and so we couldn't do it all. Like, I can't make everybody's map, I feel, you know, and to this point, the general idea of what GIS was somebody making your map. So this was a good point to take an opportunity to address kind of that bias that you saw within the business. And we came up with some key behaviors that we've rolled out within the business. And out of the boundary, you can see the reduction of the number of desktop licenses and users of ArcGIS. I'll talk about that at the end. So what is our EnerGIS strategy? So we have 3 pillars to our strategy. First, you can see at the bottom, build our GIS foundational capabilities. And key to that is managing spatial data in our spatial related data sets. And also developing those behaviors. The second pillar is enhancing our technology. So like I said before, we're using Portal, which is our map hub. We also have desktop users. Our database is SDE. And then we have other softwares that utilize GIS map services. We pull data in from other systems. And then the new component, the mobility apps that Esri supports that integrate very simply with MapHub. And then anything performance improvement related, so anything workflow related, basically. We can try and automate some workflows for efficiency. And the 3 pillars actually support our self-service mapping model that we'll talk about. So how did we address our OC? So we addressed our OC through what we're calling our community of practice. And community of practice is used to help shape and guide the business in GIS. We've reached out to our sponsors, and they've identified what we're calling data quality analysts, or you can look at them as champions. So they're super powered GIS users within the business. Some are past team members, some use GIS every day, some don't, but are aware of GIS and what it can do. And you'll see number 4, they act as those custodians. So if someone has a data request, say they need new coal data, if that request comes in to the IT team, we then reach out to the member of that function, say a geologist asks, and we would go to our asset development custodian, and that individual would work with the data requester, just because in the department that we're in, we're a little bit removed from that workflow and that function and how that works. So we can ensure that it's going to work in our GIS system, but we want to make sure that we have all of the information from the customer and from our custodian, that's going to serve their purpose, and we're not recycling and bottlenecking it gives an area for collaboration within the business. We meet every other week at this point. We're hoping to decrease that to maybe quarterly in the future, but since we've just been meeting since the beginning of the year, we've been trying to meet more frequently. And this is my favorite graphic, because it really ties in some of our behavioral changes that we've tried to bring to business. Number one, so we involve AMBU's GIS practitioners. So often in the past, GIS was kind of an afterthought at the end that we couldn't add any value to any sort of project or even a map at the end. So we want to be involved from the beginning if possible, even if it's just to advise, like, hey, we do have an interest in this, but we don't need to talk to you until, you know, three months from now. 2, we're going to establish GIS requirements for our partners. So we have worked for the past year with our supply chain group in identifying contracts that have a spatial feel that involves spatial data. And as those come up, we're adding language that's going to ensure that we have that those communication channels where we can request data in a certain coordinate system with certain attributes, data collected in a certain digital format, just so that we can provide the most value to our customers. And like I said before, not as an afterthought. And 3, we're going to build and share GIS products for greater AMBU. So if there's an analysis that has an output that multiple groups can use, we're going to try and automate that so that we can add it to our database and add it to our map services, and everyone will be able to see it in Portal. And if we do all of those things, we'll have effective contracts, we'll have the best use of all of our data, and we'll provide those reusable spatial analyses. And these are just some questions that we've posed to the business to think about. So is this vendor collecting spatial data about our location? Could we use it if we had it in the right format? Would the teams benefit from analyzing this competitor and partner data if it was in our GIS applications? Are we spending money to obtain data that we already have or can get for free? And then, are you answering a spatial question, like where is the best place for a well pad? Could that analysis be automated to reduce the work for yourself or others? And like I said, it'd be short, so I apologize, but I'll leave you guys with our GIS program vision statement. So the vision of AMBU's GIS program is to identify, prioritize strategy, and fit-for-purpose projects that can enable better self-service decision-making through the analysis of spatial relationships. And as part of our program, we did release Portal in November, and we kind of released it with a, here it is, we built what we thought you would want, you know, give us feedback over the next couple months, and people have, and we've actually been able to improve some aspects of Portal, how the data is symbolized, created some new layers, and in one of the earlier slides I said the reduction of licenses and desktop users was kind of out of the boundary. Now we're seeing that our customers would actually prefer to use Portal. So that's only adding more value to our business and kind of validating the whole VSM exercise with our leadership, because in the beginning we couldn't really justify a set cost for what we projected we would save, but over the past year we've really been able to cut down on our costs and show that enabling aspect that GIS has. More project ideas keep coming down the line, and they're really interesting to see. They all have a little bit of GIS, flair to them, but it's also really reassuring and gratifying to see leadership talk about location and GIS as very integral aspects of our business and a big part of the decisions that we make. So thanks, guys.
Sarah, obviously this was focused on your business unit, but what kind of, did you get any ideas or cross-pollination from other Chevron business units that have gone through this process for GIS specifically?
So as far as I know, and Brian, Chad, correct me if I'm wrong, we're the first one to do an exercise like this. And I actually, Chad and I both co-presented at our internal Chevron GIS Day program about it and got some good feedback.
Good.
Do you have plans to kind of in a year look back and kind of see how you've accomplished what you've accomplished and kind of not redo this, but see what impact it's made or what you could improve or anything like that? Is that part of this process?
Not like the VSM itself, but as part of the GIS program, yes. And I actually just started working on our strategy like 2.0, I call it. So we've already brought up the business to understand why GIS is important, and they're already coming up with more ideas, and we just need to keep fostering that relationship. I can see in the future maybe putting more emphasis on our information relationships with our COP members and getting good quality data, because we're finding out somebody has this spatial data set that they've siloed in their personal folder and nobody knows about it, but that's why we chose to do this well as opposed to this well. So those are the types of relationships we'd like to work on and build.
You said you did see a cost savings and getting rid of desktop licenses. So I mean, is that something you see? You're going from desktop licenses to named users that are part of the portal. I mean, you were seeing cost savings from licensing requirements there and stuff, or is that the cost of a named user? But
right. So I know Chad's working on that now, so he's probably the better person to answer that question. But I'd say at least like 90% of our desktop users that were using ARC for traditional mapping really like the usability of Portal. I know I have not made a map for somebody or had a map request in almost 5 months, and if I do go to make a map for myself, I use Portal. So I only use desktop to do publishing and any type of administrative or compliance task. So I don't know the exact numbers on that, but because we have a ELA, and I know one of the key goals this year was to see if we could cut down on that cost. Well, thanks, guys.